So with that, Q&A. Yeah, in fact, we have plans to build an app. We're going to start with iPhone and then possibly do Android. And right now, the discussions we've even had this week are, do we package it up into an app container that really just calls web content, or do we package it up into a completely self-contained application? But the idea behind the app is that I could push a button to do a spoken code. I could have a field to do a text code. I could click on it to launch the camera to do a picture code, or I could fire up Red Laser or something to do easy code or Scan Life to use a barcode scanner. Oh, sorry, I should have repeated the question. So he said, can you do an app? And then that was my answer.
So when you're looking at a medium like a magazine or television or something like that, is your vision that you would try to target the advertisers for those mediums, or are you thinking more about the media themselves and have your O codes as a value add to the advertisers that want to use that media?
Our initial customers are actually the publishers, because they can turn around and resell the O codes to their advertisers, and then they have two reasons. They can increase revenues and justify ad spend in a medium that's getting a lot of pressure. So, for instance, the magazine publishers, everyone's saying, why would I advertise with you? Print's dead. And they said, oh, no, it's not. Here's a really cool idea, and print's not dead, and you should use this, right? So we do have advertisers that self-select and come to our website and just sign up and start creating codes. That's happened. But our target has been to go to the content publishers, and then they, in turn, take it to their advertising customers.
I had a question about, like, for example, you're saying if we texted the code 62626, we could get the slides for today. Now, is that a special code just for this meeting, or does it just recognize the location, and that's why it's going to
It doesn't recognize a location right now, although that's technically possible. So right now, I set it up before I came to the meeting and attached my PDF to it. But for advertisers and publishers, for instance, if I put a code on a billboard, I could change the content behind that every single day if I wanted. So if someone came past the billboard multiple times, the code could be the same, but the content behind the code can change as often as they want to change it.
So you talked about some of the people that you have advising you on your company. My question is, how do you find these people, and how do you convince them that your idea or your business is something that they need to get behind?
Well, first I just tell them, look, I talked to Ben Peterson. He said it was stupid, and then everyone wants to sign up. I don't know what it is about that. It's kind of a magical little feather in my cap. I'm just teasing him because I was seeing if you were paying attention. Okay, no. I spend a lot of time, and this is one of the challenges of being an entrepreneur. All the entrepreneurs out there know this. I spend like 50% of my time networking and pitching, and 50% of my time, running the company or selling, basically. So I've invested a lot of time in networking and getting to know people, and it's coming to events like this, and I'll talk to people, I'll come up and meet people, and then the people that I meet introduce me to other people. And it's through those networks that I've been able to develop the relationships. I'll give you the quick example of one is I'm a member of Corporate Alliance, which is a business networking group, and I sat at a lunch meeting with a young guy who was an intern who, and this is about relationship arrogance, like don't ever think that, this person's not going to be the one who can connect you with the right person. Well, his best friend's dad was John Richards, who's Utah Angels and one of the Boom Startup co-founders. And he said, hey, my friend's dad does investing and stuff like that. Maybe I can introduce you. And I said, that would be awesome. And so he introduced me. I went to lunch with him, and John got excited about our idea and said, hey, you should apply for Boom Startup. At the same time, that very week, I was at another meeting where I was talking to a guy and telling him my idea, and he said, hey, I've got a friend named Rob Coons. You should talk to him about this idea. And I went to lunch the same week with Rob, not knowing that these two guys were kind of related and working together on this Boom Startup program. He said, hey, we've got Boom Startup. You should go. So right out of the gate, just by this networking, I was able to meet the two co-founders of Boom Startup. They invited me to the program, and it went from there. And I just have so many relationship stories that you never know if it's the first person that you meet. Maybe it's that person, the person that they know, and then the person that they know that refers you, and you build those networks, and then the doors open.
Question is obviously you've looked at this here in the U.S. with the short codes. Have you looked at this international, where SMS actually is more accepted and it's much easier and more cost effective to roll out without going through the whole CCF and 3 months to get a short code?
Yeah. So we actually thought about starting in India first. I spent about 6 months in India, and text messaging, first of all, there's no regulations. I mean, you can just do whatever you want with texting pretty much down there. And it was pretty cheap, almost free. But in the end, we came back to established large publishers and media players. If we could get in the U.S., we could pretty much grow from the U.S. to anywhere, where it might have been harder to start in India and then, come back to the U.S. And we had more relationships and connections here in the U.S., so we kind of took the harder route first, but figured it would maybe be downhill from there, as opposed to taking an easier route and then working upstream. But we've got the architecture built now that we can send it into different countries instantaneously.
Gotcha. Just a recommendation, if you do head towards Europe, a great aggregator to work with over there, very cost effective, is Clickatel.
Clickatel. Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was one of the ones that we evaluated for the U.S. We ended up with Open Market, but for a lot of side stories that I won't waste your time with right now. But
with a new activity like this, I mean, this breaks my normal circle of routine. I'm not used to punching in a text when I'm reading a magazine.
Yeah.
There's obviously an education element on the front end of that. And have you talked to those publishers about, on the front, are you going to get prime real estate on that inside cover to explain that there are these codes throughout the magazines? And has that been a hurdle, and how are you overcoming that?
That was exactly why we started with magazines and catalogs instead of, for instance, TV or billboards, because in those other areas we don't have the luxury of explaining to somebody how it works. So the concept was, in the magazines and catalogs, they're willing to explain to somebody how it works because they want the people to use it and engage with it. And then the idea is we build up that recognition, and then we could take it to TV or billboards or other places where someone could just see it and know what that code is and know what to do with it. So our strategy with the print publications was exactly what you just said. Yeah, there's going to be that initial education.